Yeah.
Okay, so today's March 1st, 2016, and I'm with Christine Walker, and my name is Denise Richard, and we're talking today about Christine's involvement as an organizer, as a supporter of the arts on Bowen Island. So welcome, Christine. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm really happy we're going to do this today. What I'd like to do is just ask you a few questions regarding your process here on Bowen Island. So if you could just start by telling me a little bit about you, Bowen Island, your history a little bit with Bowen Island, with the arts and culture, and then I can maybe take it from there.
Okay, great. Well, I was a resident of Bowen Island for 13 years. We moved here when our kids were 1 and 3, and we moved here because of the close-knit community that existed here, and the fact that our kids could grow up in a really varied culture. In terms of the arts was certainly a proponent of us moving here, as well as just the proximity to the Lower Mainland. Lots of activities for the kids, and we just felt like it was a good place to be. So when I first moved here, I was working in town, and I worked for the North Van Rec Commission, and my role there was with the arts, actually. I was the arts programmer that worked at a community center, so I was responsible for all the visual arts, performing arts, pottery, so it was really enlightening for me to be a part of all that. So I knew when I started to work here as a programmer that that's something that we wanted to continue on and make sure that we developed more. And my role now, being at the municipality, and my role is, our department really looks at that partnership is very strong between ourselves and BIAC, and making sure that those needs are being met. And I think that we have a fantastic working partnership right now, and hope that kind of continues. So my personal participation has not been huge, and I love doing creative things. I love doing art. I really have to push myself and think that it's okay that it's not perfect.
Right.
But I've loved going to the painting, the Drink Paint, and I have been participating a lot in cultural activities on the island and going to plays. And again, working closely with BIAC, we've put on a lot of really great community events that have been great cultural events for the community.
Wonderful. Could you tell me a little bit about, when you think about the community events that you've put on, can you tell me a little bit about what is most memorable there? Was there an event, or is there a situation that really touched you, that really marks your involvement here?
Yeah, I have a excuse me, a pretty pivotal one was the torch relay, actually, and everything leading up to the torch relay for the Olympics. We also had the Spirit of BC in there as well, and that to me was one of the most magical moments on Bowen Island that I've ever experienced. And everything from the night before of having live music down on the beach in the dark with a big bonfire down at the end of Crippen there in Snug Cove, and having it was the Chillbillies who were performing, and we had the Morris dancers. To the next day we had, I don't know, we guessed probably about 1,500 people out to watch the torch come down the main road and onto the ferry with live music. And the entire experience from start to finish, from when we started planning to when it ended, was the most magical thing ever. And to me, that will always stick with me. Like, it gives me goosebumps today.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
So as an organizer and as somebody who's supported the arts at that level, can you tell us a little bit about what do you see is unique about Bowen as far as culture and about bringing that together? Is there anything that's particularly Bowen in quality?
Yeah, the biggest thing I think is the involvement of the community and all that. I think that every group, from my experience there, nobody said no. Everybody tried to find a way to actually participate in that. So everything from the mural that went up in the cove to the statue that was creative all came out of, that work that was being done. To the gymnastics club doing a flash mob, right down by the ferry. So to me, that's what was pivotal in making that experience so great, is that everybody wanted to contribute. There was never a time where anyone said, no, I don't want to be a part of that. Like, everyone felt like they wanted to be a part. And I feel like that continues for everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's always people who want to contribute.
So what I hear you're also talking about is that your particular creative brand has been to involve yourself in the organization and support of the arts and the links that are needed in order for that to
Absolutely,
happen.
yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about what qualities you see as that kind of organizer? What do you see as that you've had to develop or that you've had to grow into?
I think it's that building relationships, communicating, listening to each other. Um, that to me is really important. And in order, those relationships are pivotal in anything. So uh, that's a real, like, I feel like that's the most important thing out of all of it. Anybody can organize something, but unless you actually can build those relationships and get more people involved,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is, that's what makes it a success.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. And the continual renewal
yeah,
of that and
absolutely.
not locking into a pattern so much.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, it amazes me over the 13 years of being in the municipality too, and in my role is like, that there's so much vast knowledge and skill sets and things that we just tap into continually on the island, and it constantly changes.
Right.
That's what's fast. Like, that's awesome. So it's always being on top of that, being able to see that, you know what, changes are happening, and there's new people who are coming to the island with different skill sets, and everybody contributes in a different way.
Wow. And to stay open to that
Yeah.
continual change.
Yeah, it's fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you see Bowen different from Vancouver? Is now that you've told me that you've moved to Vancouver because of the kids being a certain age and have certain needs now. What's the difference? Do you see that? Can you feel that more?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Everybody knows everybody here. There's community engagement. There's always people who are volunteer. I mean, the volunteerism on this island is unbelievable,
Mm-hmm.
and in all different realms.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, people find their niches, but they, you know, are always willing to contribute. It's like in a small community. You know, everyone looks out for one another.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it that special. Like, that's what makes it so special.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you don't find that when you're in town.
You don't see the same kind of closeness or the same kind of...
No, I mean, you'll find it in smaller, like, you know, I think in smaller communities and, you know, that are a little bit tighter, say like Edgemont Village or
Mm-hmm.
Deep Cove or things like that. But not to the extent that you see the engagement here.
So do you see a big change since you've since you've come, like 13 years ago?
No.
But you see the continual change.
I see a continual change, but it's the same change that's happening.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't
Okay.
see like, oh, it was so much different back in the,
Yeah.
you know, 13 years ago versus where
Right.
we are today.
You kind of see it in the same way.
Yeah.
As a continual
Yeah.
movement. So do you see anything changing right now that you'd mark? You say, okay, this is a change that I see happening now.
Do I see anything that's really changing? I don't really see a lot. I mean, there's a lot of new families who are coming here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is certainly, you know, looking at that, you know, it's becoming an attraction for
Mm-hmm.
young families. I think it's always been that way, but
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing a lot more influx, it feels like, all of a sudden, of the younger families.
So do you see any change in terms of either the culture or the arts specifically, like with the annex trying to come through and all that? Do you see that things are moving in any particular way?
I think we're moving forward. Like, I think that we're recognizing that, you know what, there's definite needs on the island that need to be met, and that in order to kind of keep up with times that we need to be able to expand. And I think the annex is a great example of, you know, two groups coming together and
Mm-hmm.
being able to address like a particular need.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's just a progressive change that's continuing to happen.
So you see us continue growing up.
Yeah.
Continually
Yeah.
growing up. So personally though, tell us a little bit about you personally and artistically. What makes you happy? What do you feel as a growing artist, let's say, makes Christine happy?
I love to be creative. I love being able to, I mean, I have to say right now, my most favorite thing to do right now is those coloring books that have come out.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so there's all these different coloring books out now for adults, and they're very intricate, and you can find them all over the place, and they're fantastic. And that's what I sit and do in the evening, is like I'll have that, and I just sit and color. And it's, for me, it's not necessarily the actual drawing of anything, obviously, but it's that creative of being able to figure out the colors and where I want things to go and how I would like it to look. I love to doodle, and so I like to create those
So
kinds
it gives
of
you a
things.
doodling formula.
It totally does.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Very good.
I would love to be able to spend more time eventually and just be able to explore painting a little bit more for me. I'm really intrigued by it. I really like it. And like I said before, I think I'm a bit harsh on myself. But
I think that's part of being an artist, is that we have an idea of what we want, and it doesn't ever come out like that. There's always some kind of change, because there's to go from the thought to the actual page is such a big process, and there's so much in that. So it's not unusual that we have to kind of learn to find ourselves in there personally and distinctly. So I appreciate that it's being an artist, or growing, or being in the arts, or following an artistic path puts you in a place of having to evaluate continuously who you are and how it feels to express what you're feeling. So I'd like to ask you on that note, having two teenagers, and knowing that they've been here and they've really involved themselves in the arts to some degree, what would you say was important to you as a mother who's had kids and who's been involved in the arts on Bowen? How do you see that path for kids in terms of their distinction and distinguishing, helping kids artistically?
my husband and I were always very open, and he comes from a very artistic family, about exposing our kids to as many different opportunities as possible. So they are both extremely creative in their own ways. And that's something that we've always tried to foster. There's never been, this is how you do something. It's leaving it up to them to create. And I think that for us, that's really the key for us in terms of raising our kids and of teaching them about the importance of arts. We've also been really, we really tried to give them a cultural experience, no matter on any vacation that we take, there's always some sort of cultural experience that we make sure that that's included in that, whether it's going to a show or whether it's participating in a community event or things like that. We've really tried to expose them to as much of that as possible.
Right. So, and is there any particular event or thing that's memorable to you as far as their involvement and the way that Bowen does that?
It's funny. I will go back to the torch relay, and
that was big for you.
I will go back to that because they were a part of that process for me. Like they lived and breathed that every day when I came home or whatever, if we'd met, and they were a part of putting that together as well. So I think that would be the same kind of.
So one of the things that I'd like to pause on for here is that Bowen has particular needs, and it also brings forward a unique blend, an artistic blend, because we have per capita probably more artists than any other place in the Lower Mainland, so we're unique that way.
Right.
Having been here and watching it grow and watching artistic needs, how would you describe as an organizer what you see that we need for the future? If we're going to have, for instance, partnerships between different groups, and if we're growing that way, as an organizer, what would you say is important?
To grow?
Yeah. Or just to be able to meet our needs, our strengths, our opportunities that are coming up.
I think, again, I go back to that, you can't do it alone. We all can't do it alone. So it's a matter of finding where those partnerships or different organizations that you can work with lie to actually help you grow. So whether that is if there's a certain need that is not being met on the island, then who can help you do it?
That's right.
And really seeking that out. I mean, I think it's something that we all think about now, is that we can't do it alone.
That's right.
And so it's really, getting together and talking about how do we actually get it. I've always felt that, on the island, we are a small community, and we need to be able to work together in order to get things done and to actually have things happen. We can't be working against one another. We
That's
really
right.
need to be working
So
together.
it's like open up a field of compassion.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
being able to operate at that level.
And it might be, and it might also be that there's somebody or a group on the island who has that skill set and that can actually do those. So how do we support them then?
Right.
It doesn't mean that we actually have to do it,
Right.
but how can we support it?
Right.
Is another way of looking at it.
Right. But somehow you've been able to continually maintain that skill of being able to bridge, being able to stay in right relationship, and produce harmony so that things come to fruit.
Yeah, but I think
And not alone.
no,
obviously.
exactly. It totally isn't alone. And you know what? We've had the right people. It's just it feels like it fits. Like we all really respect one another and respect what each
Respect.
other
There
does.
you go.
And I think that that's really important.
So you bring the respect, and the respect comes back to you.
Hopefully, yeah.
If you can manage that. So I'd like to ask you if you have any last thoughts or anything that you'd bring to just after this, thinking about what you've said now. Is there anything that you'd like to talk a little bit about, or that brings you to think a last message around what it's like to be part of the Bowen culture? And you've chosen to remain with us, which is wonderful. Even though you've had to meet the needs of your children, you're still with us every.
I can't leave it.
and that you really love it here, and love
I
working
do.
for Bowen Island.
Yeah.
So, is there any last thoughts you have about that?
I have been fortunate to spend a lot of time on Gabriel Island as well. My parents live there and we've had property there while I grew up. And it's a really artistic island as well. Like it's got a lot of very artistic activities that happen. What I find is, I don't know how I say, more positive about Bowen is just that we seem to be a bit more cohesive. We seem to work, like I just feel like we broaden our horizons a little bit. It's not just the arts. It's not just recreation in my case. It's not, we do broaden that to actually include as many different people as possible. And that's where I think that is where Bowen really succeeds. And as I mentioned before, we don't do it alone. We actually really rely on each other. So.
So you've had experience in small community.
Yeah.
And how to help sustain and help the community grow and maintain itself and in right relationship.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I want to say this has been a pleasure for me to meet you.
Me too.
And to know a little bit about you. And also, thank you for your wise words.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.